Tonight, the most influential midterm elections in decades. At stake, control of the Senate and the House of Representatives. An interim report card on President Donald Trump. Here in New Jersey, Senator Robert Menendez in the fight of his career as he faces billionaire drug executive Bob Hugin. And in the House, a number of traditionally Republican districts are up for Democratic grabs, including in the 11th Congressional District, where Democrat Mikey Sherrill is in a high-profile race against Republican Jay Weber. And in the 7th, where Republican Leonard Lance is defending his seat against Democrat Tom Malinowski. Tonight, live reports from those headquarters. Latest projections and numbers from all around New Jersey. Probing interviews with some of the state's best journalists and analysts. And updates all night long from our social media desk, where your hashtags rule. From the state-of-the-art headquarters of the School of Communication and Media at Montclair State University. This is Montclair News Lab, NJ Decides. Live from the News Lab, here's Kate Bronstein and AJ Malillo.
Good evening and welcome to Election Night 2018 live from Montclair State University in the School of Communication and Media.
That's right, we're in our brand new year-old building here, and we're very excited to be with you. We're going to be here all night, and we're going to be joined with our Twitter correspondent and WMSC representative, Pat Cicchetti, and our tweet beam. So make sure you tweet at hashtag NJDecides2018 and hashtag MSUDecides2018.
And if you're watching us tonight, that means you found us on one of the following platforms: Montclair News Lab, 90.3 WMSC, The Montclarian, YouTube, or Facebook Live. So there's many different ways you can get to see us tonight.
Right, and this production has been a collaboration of all of those organizations here at Montclair State University. Another person we'll be joined with is our roaming reporter, Amanda Eustace, and we're excited to hear who she's interviewing with today, and we'll be with her a lot more throughout this production. So
yes, we will. But tonight we are covering New Jersey Districts 2, 3, 7, and 11, as well as the New Jersey Senate race. And we were talking about the Senate race a lot here, AJ.
Yeah, the Senate race is big. It's not just big in New Jersey either. This is a big national race. But here at Montclair State University and throughout the whole state of New Jersey, we have a nice nickname for this race, actually. It's called the Battle of the Bobs, right? So why is this race called the Battle of the Bobs?
Yes, let's elaborate on this
sure. So we have incumbent Senator Bob Menendez, who is taking on challenger Republican Bob Hugin. So Bob v. Bob, you know.
There we go, the Battle of the Bobs.
The Battle of the Bobs. And this is a very, very big race throughout the nation, because it pretty much is one of those things that if the Republicans win, it's a way to bolster their majority in the Senate. And this is a traditionally blue seat, you know, Kate?
That's the thing. New Jersey's typically blue, and one of the things that we were talking about is if it switches tonight, that's a big deal, because this is the first time since 1972 that New Jersey would have had a Republican in that spot.
Well, that they would have an elected Republican, right?
So we would have elected.
Right. So Clifford P. Chase was the last elected Republican, you're right, in 1972. Since then, there's been a couple other Republicans in the Senate, but they've always been appointed to the seats. They've never been elected to the seats. So it's going to be really interesting to see, you know, what happens, and if the Republicans can.
And especially because this is such a close race, and we're not going to call anything until it's official here, but we are definitely going to keep tabs on everything. We have so many people assisting us with this, and we're very grateful to them as well.
You're absolutely right. So just a little bit of background. Right now, the Republicans have a 51 to 49 seat lead in the Senate, and in the House of Representatives, there's a 235 to 193 seat lead. So we'll see how that pans out.
And we will. But right now, we are going to go live to Professor Mark Rosenwig in Studio A with another special guest.
Well, good evening and welcome to Studio A. And I have a special guest with me. Jonathan Alter is political commentator for MSNBC and NBC News and best-selling author, Montclair resident, documentarian. We're talking about your documentaries and so on. And welcome. Thanks for coming to campus.
My
it's
pleasure,
good to see
Mark.
you back here. We were talking earlier about the effect of this particular campaign this election on young people. What's your view of that, and what are your hopes coming out of that?
Well, I think it's just so important that young people connect to politics right now, because so much about the world they're growing up in is at stake in this election tonight. And, there's some indications that turnout among young people is up today, sort of anecdotally. We'll find out more later on. But I think that younger people are recognizing that whether it's climate change or healthcare or education or democracy, like whether we will continue to have the democracy that we've enjoyed all these years, is very much on the line. And, this to me is the most significant midterm election of my lifetime. And I'm over 60 now, and I've covered every presidential and midterm election going back to 1980. So both at NBC News and at Newsweek. And there's more at stake right now because of what this president has done in the last couple of years than there has ever been at stake before. And the people who are going to be affected by that are mostly young people. Now, the good news is there are a lot of millennials who are running for office this time, and a lot will likely be elected tonight. So there is generational change as a major theme of this election.
And women are playing a more
Right.
active role than ever, correct?
Yes.
And also
Yes.
as candidates, of course.
Yes, and we have, in New Jersey, if you look at a candidate like Mikey Sherrill, who's favored tonight, we'll see whether she wins, but she is an example, has been featured a lot in the national media as an example of the new breed of younger women. She's a veteran who may be getting prepared to take their place in our public life.
When you write your columns and so on, what kind of, are you getting more reaction as a result of this to the things that you write? And is it something that's coming from young people? I mean, what is motivating them to get involved this time around? Is it one thing or a combination of things, do you think?
I think it's a combination of things. I mean, there's some issues that they've gotten involved in, like climate change or legalization of marijuana. But I also think that younger people are on to Donald Trump more than people my age. They get that he's a clown and a fraud, and I don't, and a liar. And normally as a journalist, like I would be very reluctant to use those kinds of adjectives in describing somebody. But our job is not to be stenographers who just report on what politicians say. If they're not telling the truth, or if they're acting in an irresponsible demagogic fashion, it's our responsibility to point it out. And what's so interesting is that young people, much more than older people, and you'll see this in the exit polls tonight, they get that this guy is a menace to our country, and they get it much, much more than other age groups. And so, that's why their participation is so important, because this election is really about, will he be checked or not?
Now, we may be jumping the gun a little bit, but we'll look at our crystal ball, your crystal ball, and what if the Democrats take the House? What would you expect to happen over the next 6 to 12 months?
So that's what I'm writing a piece for the Daily Beast about tonight, and there will be big changes. When you get control of one chamber of Congress, you get subpoena power, and that means that you can hold hearings. Donald Trump's taxes will come out in January or February. The House will, if it goes to the Democrats, will be able to do that. There will be oversight hearings on everything from his these allegations of tax fraud to Russia. If he were to fire Robert Mueller, they just ship the documents up Pennsylvania Avenue to Capitol Hill, and the investigation would continue in the House of Representatives, which it will anyway. If the head of the EPA or other agencies are doing things to hurt our environment, they'll be hauled up on Capitol Hill and grilled for that. So there's a lot that will happen. He won't be able to get a single piece of legislation through without the approval of the Democrats. And they might compromise on infrastructure or drug prices or some things, but basically his free hand will be greatly limited.
It'll be very interesting to see. We're jumping the gun, but we should prepare for the future, and we'll see what happens.
Right, absolutely.
But thank you for joining us. Great to see you.
Thanks, Mark. Great seeing you.
And now we're going to go back to the News Lab.
Thank you so much for that. And we just wanted to give all of you a quick update from our News Live desk here.
Yeah, so CNN has called the Virginia Senate race. Incumbent Democrat Tim Kaine is projected to defeat Republican Corey Stewart. So that's one seat that has fallen, but it just went back to the incumbent. So
yeah,
I mean, nothing really changes when it comes to any change in who's in control, really, because the incumbent's got it.
And the polls have also closed in 8 states, including Vermont, Virginia, North Carolina, Indiana, Ohio, and Florida. So
we're going to be seeing
we're going to be standing by for everybody.
Exactly. And you know what? The Florida race, that's a big one. The North Indiana Senate race is a big one. So we got a couple big races coming out of those.
We have a little ways to go, but right now we have Bryn McDonald at Bob Menendez's camp, and that is going at campaign headquarters, excuse me. So let's check in with her and see what's going on. Bryn?
Thanks, Kate. I'm Bryn McDonald, and we are live from the campaign headquarters in Hoboken, New Jersey. It is in the midst of what really could be considered a historic New Jersey Senate race. Former Senator Bob Menendez is up against Republican challenger Bob Hugin, who has poured in over $36 million of his own fortune into going against Bob Menendez. Hugin has linked Menendez to personal scandal and government corruption and is really representing Menendez in a matter that people just do not want him as their senator representing their seat. They don't want him as a role model for their children, their grandchildren. And Menendez has shot back, linking Hugin to Donald Trump and really riding the anti-Trump wave that has seemed to infiltrate this country. Menendez is running not only in hopes of re-election, but in hopes of taking back control of the House and the Senate. As of this morning, Menendez did lead the polls by more than double digits, but this race is really a toss-up, and it really could go either way. As you can see, we are waiting on Menendez and his team to enter into the room, but we are just waiting on what could be considered a historic Senate race in the state of New Jersey. Kate and EJ, we're going to head back to you.
And Bryn, what is the vibe there at the camp? Is it think people are excited, or are they just nervous? Are they on the edge of their seats? What's the vibe of what's going on there?
Well, Kate, I would say the vibe is upbeat and it is hopeful. Just a few minutes ago, they were playing Carrie Underwood's song, The Champion. And I think they are really just trying to foreshadow what would be a victory for Bob Menendez and his campaign.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that, Bryn. And this election has been very important to the students here at Montclair State University. Earlier in the week, there was an event on campus where students decorated lawn signs with their ideas of freedom. Chris Hornstein has the story.
With midterm elections right around the corner and deadlines to register fast approaching, the director of University Galleries here at Montclair State brought a nationwide project to campus that blended art and expression with voting.
I think that art is always political. I'm a visual artist and I'm a curator. In both of those practices, I'm aware of the social impact of art or the social impact of the way that it's displayed.
The Four Freedoms Project helps people express themselves in 2 ways. With these freedom lawn signs, and by helping them get registered to vote in the midterm elections.
For me, it's an opportunity for all people, regardless of their politics, whether they think of themselves on the left or the right or unaffiliated, to all come together and everyone's voice gets equal weight. What's your idea about freedom? What does freedom mean to you? What do you think you're free to do or free, that we should be free from?
Can I put my hat? I wrote freedom for equality. I do believe that everyone was created equal, so everyone should be treated equal, you know what I mean? So equality, I think that mixed with a little bit of more love, I think everybody would be all right.
Britta O'Dondi from the Office of Civic and Voter Engagement on campus helped more than 20 students get registered to vote in the midterm elections.
I feel like so happy because most people don't recognize that they can register to vote or that the process is so easy. A lot of young people are I would say, misinformed at how easy voting can be.
If this event was any indication, Montclair State students will be represented well at the upcoming election. For Montclair State, I'm Chris Hornstein.
So that was Chris Morstein, and he gave us a little bit of background about MSU and what our university has been trying to do to really get out that vote, you know? So I think that it's important to talk a little bit about how the young turnout is very big in this election.
It is. And one of the things that we were talking about is how important that this might be over some other elections, that this midterm specifically has drawn more voters than a lot of other elections combined.
Absolutely. And we've been seeing those numbers as early voting has surpassed, you know, in previous midterm elections by a lot. I know I was an early voter because I was voting in my home district, and obviously I'm up here at school. So
I did mail-in ballot as well.
Right. So early voting is very big for this election, and young voting. That's the key. Is how is this young vote going to come out, and how are they going to vote?
One of the things that is really drawn a lot of young people is social media.
Definitely.
Without social media and this whole idea that people are heard on different platforms, I think that gives them a sense of power in themselves, and then they feel that they can just go and forth and then use those rights and
absolutely. And you see that with what happened after what happened in Parkland after the shooting, and how those kids made this sort of political revolution.
It did.
Just through social media. So that's really big.
And right now we want to go live to Ashley Kuzakonki at Bob Hugin's headquarters, where she's just chilling out and hanging out at Bob Hugin's headquarters. So, Ashley, how's it going over there? What's the vibe? Are people excited or nervous?
They're so excited. Everybody's a little bit nervous. Bob Hugen actually just arrived. He's right behind me. So everybody's greeting him. People are getting food, so they're getting their bellies all full. So it's a really good vibe going on right now. I actually have the spokesperson right next to me. This is Nick Icabella, Bob Hugen's campaign. Hi, Nick. How you doing tonight?
Hey, we're doing pretty well. A lot of great energy in the room.
What do you think the outcome's going to be?
Well, you know, it's too early to tell, but we always knew this race was going to be close. And what we're hearing right now is that it should be close. Polls close in about 10 minutes or so, and I think it could be a late night if the race is close.
And if, you know, he does win, you know, what do you think that would to him in New Jersey?
Well, I think it means that the people of New Jersey realize that they can have a senator who's actually going to represent them, be independent, and actually work and serve for the people. You know, Bob is doing this for the right reasons. He's not a product of a political party. He wasn't the mayor, the council person. He didn't fill out any special interest questionnaires the entire campaign. He basically funded the campaign himself. And, you know, if he actually does go to Washington, be New Jersey senator, the people will know that they actually have a senator whose sole concern is what's best for them.
And what kind of changes do you think Bob will end up doing for the people?
Well, Bob is a healthcare expert, 20 years in biotech, 11 on the board of Atlantic Health, one of the most forward-looking hospital integral care systems in the country, right here in New Jersey. And healthcare reform has been something that's on the mind of New Jerseyans for a long time. We still have problems today in healthcare. I think Bob would be a pivotal force in bringing people together to actually do what we need to do to lower costs.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Nick, and good luck to all of you here. So yeah, guys, we're here at Bob Hugen campus headquarters and Stage Tavern, Stage House Tavern, New Jersey. Sorry about that. Back to you guys at the anchor desk.
Well, Ashley, I was wondering, did Bob Hugen get close to you? I heard a little birdie on my shoulder tell me that you got really, really close to him and like physically like right next to him. Did that happen at all?
Sorry, didn't quite hear that.
It's okay. A little birdie on my shoulder told me that you got really close, like Bob Hugen was standing right next to you. Did that happen?
Yeah, he was actually right to the left of me right before we started on camera over here.
Oh my goodness.
In the building, yeah. It's like a celebrity my presence right now. Heart's beating so fast.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for that, Ashley. And
definitely. So what was said in Ashley's interview was really important and something that we've definitely seen with exit polls. Right now, healthcare seems to be a lot more important to the voters than the economy, which is something that the Republicans have been running on. You know, President Trump has prided himself on his great economy, and if voters are more in line with healthcare than the economy, this tonight might not bold as well as the Republicans hope it will.
Right.
And like they said, we'll see if the New Jersey voters think that Bob Hugin will be this independent voice in the Senate as somebody who knows healthcare, who's been in the industry.
He's been in the industry for years.
So we'll find out if that talking point resonated with New Jersey voters.
We have to wait and see. But he definitely has, like you said, he was one of the driving forces in the Senate to move past specific fights on healthcare.
Right.
We'll see what happens with him on that. And he also believes that we need to address certain things like the increasing inequality of health outcomes.
Yeah, definitely. But Hugin is, he said it in the debate when he was debating Menendez on NJTV. He's not as much of a Trump Republican as
I think he described himself as a moderate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's not afraid to go against the party on certain issues, and healthcare is one of them. He believes that, he'd look into anything to really try and help our healthcare system in this country.
Absolutely. And we have Amanda Eustace in the News Lab with us tonight, going around asking different people what their thoughts are on the 2018 midterm elections. Amanda?
Hey, thanks, Kate and AJ. I am roaming around this newsroom trying to find.
Okay, so sorry, we lost Amanda.
We lost it. It's okay. But we
were
were talking about healthcare and Bob Hugin and just his career in it prior to this election.
Exactly, and you know what? And that's been one of the biggest talking points against Bob Hugin too. So I think that's really important to mention. Is the Menendez camp has used Hugin's record against him in this election, saying that while he was the CEO of the company that he was in charge of, he raised drug prices on cancer patients 3 times in 1 year.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly mention, we want to just cut to something real quick. Bridget Harrison is a political science and law professor at Montclair State University, and we sat with her to talk about the New Jersey races, and here is what she had to say.
Well, I think that what a lot of people are paying attention to is the U.S. Senate race between Senator Menendez and his challenger, Bob Hugin. A lot of people are looking at that race because the U.S. Senate is so tight in terms of its partisan breakdown. And typically in New Jersey, we don't have very competitive Senate elections because we tend to be a blue state, right? We elect Democrats. But this year, Mr. Hugin has invested about $24 million of his own money trying to make this election competitive. We did see some of that effect during the summer, but in the past couple of weeks, we've seen Senator Menendez kind of even out in the polls and surge ahead. But I think a lot of people, both in the state of New Jersey and nationally, are paying attention to that election. I also think that, unlike most years, we have actually 4 competitive House races. In New Jersey, our congressional districts are kind of designed to be either Democrat or Republican. But this year, we saw the retirement of 2 U.S. House members who are Republicans, Congressman Rodney Frelinghuysen in the 11th Congressional District and Congressman Frank Loviondo down in South Jersey in the 2nd Congressional District. Both of those elections, what we're seeing is that Democrats are poised to take those seats. In the 2nd, it's very likely that Jeff Van Drew will beat his challenger, the Republican Seth Grossman, who's aligned himself with President Trump. In the 11th Congressional District, which Montclair State University is part of, what we're seeing is that this is an incredibly competitive race, one of the most expensive in the country. And we also see high levels of student engagement where Mikey Sherrill, a former Navy pilot, is taking on a state legislator, Jay Weber, for that seat, a very competitive election. There also are 2 other House races. Tom MacArthur was one of the architects of the alternative to the Affordable Care Act. He's being challenged by Andy Kim, who was a former Obama staffer. And another race that we're watching is Leonard Lance's district. Congressman Lance is a Republican, a relatively moderate Republican, but he's also facing a serious challenge from Tom Malinowski. In normal election years, those races wouldn't be competitive. We tend to re-elect our incumbents, but this year they are much more competitive than in years past. College students are traditionally amongst the least likely to vote, but I would say that the premise here is that when you compare college students with other voting demographics, older Americans, for example, or even middle-aged Americans, they are less likely to vote, but the reality is that this generation of college students are much more politically engaged than any other generation has been when they have been college students. So it's kind of a fallacy to say that college students aren't engaged. In fact, when you compare college students today with their parents when they were college students or people of my generation, young people, millennials and next-gen college students tend to be much more politically active and more civically engaged in their communities. What we're seeing is that lots of young people have been engaged, and most of the data shows that they are particularly active within the Democratic Party. They're constituting part of this blue wave, though of course that's not universally true. The other part is that there are some issues that are mobilizing young people. Among these issues in states is the issue of recreational marijuana use. The other issue is gun control. So around those issues, we're seeing cohorts of young people lobbying state legislatures, but also advocating for the election of various elected officials.
Well, that was amazing. Thank you. Now we go live again to Professor Mark Rosenwig in Studio A with two more special guests.
I've also got a news update for you. CNN right now is reporting that the Democrats have won the seat in Virginia's 10th Congressional District. Republicans held that, Barbara Comstock held that for quite some time, and that may be the first sign that the Democrats are going to have a good night in the House, but we'll see what happens. But we have a couple of students here who have had a lot to do with voter turnout here on campus. I want to introduce you to Britta Odandi, who's a graduate student and coordinator for the Student Voter Engagement Project here at MSU, and also Joe Dybus, who's Ambassador of Civic and Voter Engagement, and welcome to both of you. And Britta, if you would start out telling me about what you guys are doing and the results you got, which are impressive in getting students registered to vote here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us tonight. I'll start off with what we've been doing. We focus on making sure students are not only informed to vote, but they're also registered to vote. So throughout the semester so far, we've been holding voter registration drives, holding events with different campus organizations, different student leaders, and Joe will go ahead and tell you a little bit about what results we've been seeing.
Thank you. And once again, thank you for having us.
She's a great host, by the way.
Thank you.
So recently, we just found out that for Machuga Heights, one of our polling locations on campus, last year we saw about, for the governor race, we saw about 300 students came out to vote, and we're already up around 430 students came out to vote on campus, which is record numbers for our office in civic and voter engagement. So we are astonished and we're extremely proud of our campus for being civically involved and really participating in our democracy.
And you said something about a total of about 700 voter registrations among students, even though some of them may vote elsewhere. Is that correct?
Right. So currently Montclair was in the New Jersey Ballot Bowl, which was an initiative started by the Secretary of State, Tanisha Way, and that was a competition amongst universities in New Jersey to become to really have a friendly competition amongst them to have students registered to vote. So we came in first place for our bracket, which was for universities between 5,000 and 40,000 students. So Montclair took the #1 spot, and we had over 700 students registered to vote.
Well, congratulations on that. That's
Thank you.
exciting news, and you're doing a great job. Tell us though why so many more students signed up this year. What are your thoughts about that?
I think students turned up significantly because they feel as though this time they're affected. They see candidates that represent who they are. From diversity, you see women, people of color, LGBTQ, they're represented. And I feel as though for the first time in maybe a while, they feel as though their voice can truly be heard and make a difference. And then we're also seeing an increase in students seeing the importance of local elections because it directly affects them. So I think those are major reasons why more students are getting involved.
I think a lot's at stake in this election. A few weeks back we had the Senate President Steve Sweeney on campus, and they were talking about, there's a lot on stake for education, women's rights here in New Jersey, healthcare. So there absolutely is a lot at stake, and I feel as though students are really starting to get involved and saying, hey, you know what, I want to make a difference, and I want my future to be shaped the best for me.
Well, thank you both. And the key now, though, is to get these students to keep voting, correct?
Yeah.
To stay engaged.
Correct.
Okay. But thank you for what you're doing. It's,
Thank you so
it's great
much.
to hear. And now let's go back to the news lab.
Thank you so much, Professor Rosenwig. And just really briefly, student engagement is really important, especially on a college campus.
Especially in Montclair State University, we've had a lot of that here. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good to see that. Definitely. So